So we're going to start. Hello and welcome to Midnight Podcast. It's not a normal podcast. We're doing another interview with David Pittman. He's the developer of Eldritch, and we also have his brother in a live stream chat right now. So I guess he'll be answering questions too. Say hi, David.
Hello.
So tell us about. Well, I forgot to mention we also have Yessik here, but he's sort of my co-host and everything, so he's always here.
That's true.
Anyway, so tell us about Eldritch.
Yeah, Eldritch is a first-person action game inspired by roguelikes, immersive sims, and H.P. Lovecraft, which means it's kind of like Dishonored meets Spelunky.
Which is in. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Yessik.
So, it's inspired by Dishonored, Spelunky, just general roguelikeness. But the main thing of interest to me is the Lovecraft inspiration. Have you actually read much Lovecraft?
I've read a fair amount of Lovecraft, not nearly everything he wrote. I'm sure Lovecraft purists will find lots to nitpick in the game, like Shoggoths don't belong in Innsmouth or whatever. But yeah, I was more interested in making an action game, and then the Lovecraft setting kind of came later because I knew that I wanted to do something that had kind of Dishonored, Bioshocky mechanics, something where you had a weapon in your right hand and a power in your left.
Oh man, that totally reminds me. I forgot to start with my joke question kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I also forgot to mention that David has worked on stuff like Bioshock 2 and it was XCOM Declassified, right? The Bureau?
Yeah.
And so earlier today, I got in an argument with some people about whether the handyman could beat the bouncer. The handyman from Bioshock Infinite could beat the bouncer from Bioshock 1 and 2. And so I realized later after the argument that I would be able to ask David because he worked on AI stuff for the Big Daddies. So tell us what you think.
So my first thought was that, you know, the handyman, he's got that big glowing thing in his chest, and I thought, like, the bouncer's drill could just punch right through that, and I thought it would be an easy win for the bouncer. But then you made the point that the handyman, they can jump really high, and, like, I remember this one time when we were working on Bioshock 2, the player could climb up onto some crates, and the bouncer has no way to get up, and he has no ranged attack, so the player could just sit there with, like, a pistol or whatever, just plinking away at him all day, and the bouncer can't do anything. So yeah, I think I have to give the advantage to the handyman on that one.
Yeah. So the handyman could lose though if it was in the right area or whatever. Then
yeah, like I think if the bouncer, you know, if he knew the handyman was coming, he could just charge and hit him with the drill just one time. That would be all it would take.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's solved. So we already hit that first question. Well, there wasn't even a question, but telling us about Eldritch. So, what other influences besides Lovecraft are there for Eldritch? I mean, you said Dishonored and Spelunky, but I don't know if you consider those influences or just I don't know. Tell us that more.
Yeah, I think I absolutely do consider those influences. Like, this was a game that started very much about the gameplay more than like the theme or the setting, and it was important to me to have all the movement mechanics that a game like Dishonored or Far Cry or 3 or something has, where you can lean out, you can do power slides, you can crouch jump, all that kind of cool stuff. And the Lovecraft setting actually kind of came later when I was looking for, like, I know that I want to have monsters and magic and cool weapons, and I need a setting that will kind of unify all of this. And I didn't want to do science fiction, I didn't want to do Tolkien-esque fantasy, because those are just so played out. And Lovecraft is played out too in video games, but it tends to be used for like survival horror games.
Yeah.
And not so much for action games. So I thought it could be an interesting combination that people hadn't really seen before.
Well, actually, that does tie into a question I was going to ask, and it already answered it actually, so I'm not even sure why I'm bringing this up. I was going to ask, what made you go with an action game with a Lovecraft theme instead of the more traditional horror, as, you know, it's usually a bunch of gentlemen all in their suits going through Lovecraft, and that really answers that question quite well.
Like, I think there's a lot of games, like Eternal Darkness did the Lovecraft kind of like loss of sanity thing really well, and there was Call of Cthulhu, Dark Corners of the Earth, and there's some games that have done like the more literal take on Lovecraft really well, and it didn't make a lot of sense to me to try to compete with those, but I thought, you know, there was kind of like just a charmingly bizarre aspect to the world that could fit with an action game really well.
All right. Do you think you still have a lot of horror elements in the game, or? Because I know sometimes I'll just be like walking around some corners or something, and I'll just hear like the random ambient sounds or even just enemy sounds, and I'll be like, oh my goodness, I have to be careful, I'm gonna die.
Yeah, it's actually been kind of a surprise to me when people have started playing the game, the number of comments that I've got about how scary the game is, because I didn't really think that it was when I was making it, but I see how it could be like when you don't know what you're going to find,
Yeah.
and you hear all those noises in the level, and especially like when you get down to the deeper levels of this first world and you start hearing the Shoggoths in the distance and everything. Yeah, I think there's definitely it's not like meant to be a really scary game, but there's definitely that kind of like tension, and you're not really sure what you're going to find.
Yeah, I found that mystery always does bring some interesting horror elements to stuff. But anyway, I'll move on.
So I have a quick question about that. Since it was originally an action game and you kind of slapped on the theme later, I'm not saying that in a bad way, that's actually a great thing to do. Go with the gameplay first. But since you did that, did you then program in elements of horror? Like, did you decide on slight bits of uneasiness you could throw in afterwards, or did those exist in the game to begin with?
Some of the enemies in the game definitely came out of the setting. There's the screaming worms in this first world that were definitely kind of like a, what can I do that's creepy? And like, I don't know if people have figured out yet that the worms can't actually hurt you. All that they can do when they scream is the other AIs that are nearby might hear them. But yeah, they're definitely something that's just meant to frighten you.
I hadn't even realized that. I just try to kill everything as quick as possible. In the video that I did on the game, there was this big blob thing.
Yeah.
What is that?
Those are my version of a Shoggoth.
Oh, okay. Man, can you kill those?
No.
Okay, I wasn't sure, because I think I had 30 bullets, and so I just kept firing them. I may have... No, I think I used all my bullets on the shopkeeper, but I was being really careful about fighting the Shoggoth, but I ended up dying.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a good way to communicate that they're invincible. Like, they don't bleed when you shoot them, and in the next version of the game, like, shooting them won't even knock them back, so there will be just about no feedback at all when you shoot them.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really a challenge to try to explain to the player that something is not taking damage when you shoot it.
Yeah.
Well, a small idea here, even though it might be a bit too complicated for a game of this graphical style, is you could have it leave damage and then just heal up immediately.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would do anyway. So I don't know.
So like you mean like you would be able to kill it if you did enough damage in a quick amount of time?
No, I mean like there would be a visible damage indicator that would immediately fade away.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Actually, that might be something I'll have to add.
That reminds me of, I think it was Legend of Grimrock. You could, like, stun the last boss, but I don't think you could actually kill him. I think that was Legend of Grimrock. I don't remember. I've been playing too many dungeon crawlers.
Never got very far in Grimrock. I really liked it.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I don't want to talk too much about that since it's not really about that, but I definitely loved Grimrock. But it got pretty tough at sometimes.
Okay, so next question I have is, you said yourself, and it says on the website that the game's kind of a mix of Spelunky and Dishonored. Like, you really like the idea of a weapon and some magic, but does that mean that the items are going to be more limited than in a game like Ziiiq, for instance?
Probably so. To be honest, I actually haven't played a lot of Ziiiq yet. I could maybe talk about the reasons for it, but mostly it's just I haven't had the time. I really like Spelunky, and I've spent a lot of time with Spelunky. And so I was looking at games like that for the kind of the high-level structure and the number of levels, how fast it takes to go through them, that kind of thing. Whereas I was definitely looking at something like Dishonored for what the gameplay was going to be. Dishonored and Bioshock were probably my biggest touchstones for what powers you had, what weapons you had, kind of thing. So yeah, I don't actually know like how many items there are in Ziiiq, but my impression is there's quite a lot, and the item set in in Eldritch is much smaller than that. There's not a lot of redundancy in Eldritch. Like, you have the revolver, which is your main weapon, because I thought about adding like a shotgun or a machine gun, but mostly they're just also ranged weapons. They just have a different shape to the damage that they do, or they fire at a different rate, and that just seemed kind of redundant. And with Eldritch, I really wanted to just strip away everything that could be kind of excessive and focus on, what am I really trying to do here? If I'm just trying to shoot an enemy with ranged damage, I really only need one gun that does that.
Yeah.
Well,
that makes a lot of sense.
It also fits very heavily with the theme because, in Lovecraftian worlds, they never have a machine gun and a flame. Well, actually, there is a book where he has a flamethrower, but that's very specific. They never have insane weapons.
Yeah, I thought the Tommy gun might be appropriate for the era, and I think like when I was looking up art references, like the Arkham Horror stuff, I think they sometimes carry Tommy guns in that, although I don't think they ever did in any of the stories. But yeah, ultimately I wanted to just strip away all the excess and make like the most minimal set of really meaningful items that I could.
Well, if you want to go very true to the mythos, just add a flamethrower.
All right.
Actually, a flamethrower would be pretty interesting as like some big epic weapon that is like super ultra rare, hard to find. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
I could see that being like the one thing that could kill a Shoggoth too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about all the Cthulhu love here. You probably didn't know this beforehand, but I have actually read every Cthulhu story and every Lovecraft story.
Oh, awesome.
So
yeah. Your knowledge will put mine to shame then. But I'm okay with that. Like, I understood that I had kind of a very surface knowledge of Lovecraft coming into this, but it was also just fun for me to read more of his stories and research it.
So when you were you were reading them during the development of the game?
I did a lot of reading before I started, but yeah, it's very recent.
Was there anything like drastic that you had to change because you learned something during the development in the books?
No, that's a good question, but I can't think of anything that happened like that.
Okay. That's sort of similar to another question I was going to ask. Was there a period where Eldritch seemed like it wouldn't reach the light of day? And if so, like, why was that?
I don't think circumstances ever felt that drastic. I was definitely stressed out. Around midway through the project, I was working on the second world of the game, and I had set up milestones for myself so that like I knew I should have this world done by June and this world done by July, kind of thing. And it looked like I was going to miss one of those milestones, and I was really stressed out about it. But things actually kind of worked out. Like, I'm actually at this point I'm releasing the game 2 months ahead of my original schedule.
Oh, that's awesome. So since you already brought up World 2, let's talk about that. I can't remember my question earlier, but if you can remind me, that would be great.
A question on World 2?
Yeah. What was my question? Oh, yeah. Okay, so I finished World 1, and I don't know exactly what's entitled as finished. I got the Dagon's Eye or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went and put it on the pedestal. I went to book 2, but then I ended up dying while I was down there. One of those statues that are similar to the Doctor Who crying angel, whatever.
Yeah.
That's what killed me. I didn't realize they were so fast. That was crazy. Anyway, so one of those killed me, and so I lost all my stuff because I think this was probably mentioned already, but it's a roguelike. So,
right.
So I lost all my stuff, and so I kept trying to go into World 2, but I ended up dying so quickly, and I was just going to ask you if it's necessary to go back to World 1 to sort of build up all your inventory and everything just to do World 2.
Yeah, I've been doing some balancing against that. Like, I don't want it to be absolutely necessary to go back to the first world, and it's probably a little bit too hard right now in the beta. Like, I've actually tuned down the damage that the statues do a little bit, so hopefully people can just pick up and go straight to World 2, because that's kind of the point of the world staying unlocked, is that you could just jump straight in and not have to start playing from the beginning. But if you want to actually finish the game, you do actually have to go through all 3 worlds in a row. So ultimately, once you've unlocked all the worlds and you've kind of gone through them the first time and you've learned what the enemies are going to be like, the player does have to go through that whole progression of World 1, World 2, World 3, get each of the souls, and then bring them out.
Okay.
So you mentioned Minecraft as an inspiration. Does that mean that this game will be incredibly loaded with, like, every secret imaginable? Or not Minecraft, sorry, it's not Minecraft, Spelunky is what I meant to say there. Yeah.
Yeah. It has some secrets. I don't want to give too much away about that yet. Not quite as many, I think, as Spelunky has. Like if you're familiar with like the eggplant in Spelunky, there's nothing that esoteric. But yeah, there's some secrets to find. There's reasons to play the game again after you finish it the first time.
So he brought up Minecraft as an influence, and I know you said that it's. I know you didn't necessarily say that it was an influence, but did that influence the art at all?
It was definitely. It validated the art, I guess I would say, more than inspired it. Like, if Minecraft didn't exist, I might have briefly thought about, like, oh, I can just make a whole world out of boxes. But then I would be like, no one would ever accept that. Like, that's going to look like garbage. It's just a whole world made out of boxes. But then, like, Minecraft came along and was like, no, actually, you can do that, and people think it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, for this game, the world being made out of voxels and the enemies all being so low polygon, it's more about me having relatively low amounts of art skill and just needing to get something done in the time that I had, rather than like an aesthetic preference for that.
It still looks pretty great, though.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
The one thing that people don't seem to realize about Minecraft is that it was nowhere near the first voxel game.
Oh, yeah.
And that every game that is voxel is not necessarily based on Minecraft. But I do have to agree, it does really validate the style. Did I actually pick this up?
Yeah, that's something that I... Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, never mind, I was talking about the game. Go on.
Something that I hope we see, you know, maybe Eldritch could be part of this movement. You know, maybe there'll be some other bigger game that comes along. But I hope that we start to see more games that do use voxels but don't have those elements in common with Minecraft of, like, you know, exploring a really large open world and gathering resources and stuff. Because, like, a voxel world is really just the 3D version of, like, a tile world in a game like Super Mario Brothers. Like, when people compare Eldritch to Minecraft, I'm kind of like, it's like comparing Spelunky to Terraria. Like, they're from the same perspective and they both use tiles, but the gameplay is completely different. And I think, you know, right now Minecraft is obviously a very big game, and so anything that uses voxels will get compared to that. But hopefully, you know, in the coming years, people will grow to accept voxels as just like, yeah, this is a way that you can make 3D worlds.
So, I have another quick question for you. This one is more mechanic related. I have already found one of these toxic fruits that I have actually heard a decent amount about. I have avoided picking them up so far because can there be a plus to eating toxic fruits?
There can be a plus to eating toxic fruit. There's a 2 in 3 chance that they will heal you, and a 1 in 3 chance that they'll damage you instead. So you're gambling.
How does that apply to the rotten meat?
Oh, it's the same ratio for the rotten meat.
Okay.
In fact, meat and plants are basically always the same. The only reason that I put plants in is because I have friends who played Deus Ex with a vegan play style, meaning that they would only eat like the soy food and the juice packets and things. And so I wanted to have vegan play style as an option in Eldritch. So you could play through the game and not eat meat and not ever get the tinning kit that lets you eat enemies, and just only use plants and fountains to heal yourself.
Oh yeah, I forgot all about the tinning kits and all that extra stuff. I was only thinking about weapons. So what sort of inspirations did you have when sort of building those items?
Those tended to revolve just around, like, what are the really cool, interesting things that you can do in the world, and what would I want to do if like, I had more power over that. So, like, the world had locked doors, and you could get keys, and you could unlock them. And then I was thinking, like, what if you had a power where you could lock a door so that an enemy couldn't follow you? And it didn't turn out to be the most useful ability, although I've said that about other abilities, and then they turned out to be some of players' favorites. So I'm sure there's someone out there who will think that, like, the locksmith kit is the coolest thing in the game. But yeah, it was just about, like, how can I take the systems that are there in the game and give the player an additional way to express themselves with those systems.
Okay.
So the game's not quite out in full release, and I know I realize you said you want this to be more of an action game than anything else, but in keeping with the theme, are you going to have more unkillable enemies that are going to force you to run away?
There's so if you've seen the Shoggoths and you've seen the statues in World 2, which actually those are killable, but only if you have dynamite. Those are the only unkillable enemies in the game, as far as I recall. And I'm not planning to add a lot at this point. Like, the game that you're playing right now is very close to the beta, and the beta it's for all intents and purposes done. Anything that I change after that will just be bug fixing, compatibility issues. But there is a chance I might want to add some free DLC later. I haven't really thought too much about that, but like I have the framework to do it, and if the game does really well, like I think that could be something cool to add. So if you have ideas, I mean, and anyone in the chat too, like feel free to talk about what you would like to see in the game, because it could happen.
I don't mean to nitpick or anything, but one interesting thing I would like to see is, isn't it enemies only respawn after you loot them?
Yeah.
Okay. The way I easily got around that is I would just never really loot enemies. So I don't know if there was something to sort of prevent that from just making all enemies disappear, or if that was intended, then I mean I guess that's fine too. But I'm not sure if that was intended.
Yeah, it is actually meant to be like an interesting choice that you can make, where like if you choose not to loot enemies, the world won't repopulate, but then you don't get the loot, and so maybe you run out of bullets faster. And that's something I'm going to be looking at during the beta, is like, does that become way too easy if people play it that way? Are there too many items to find besides bodies and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think that might actually be true, because like I said earlier, I was getting like 30 bullets or so, and I wasn't looting any bodies or anything.
Yeah. So yeah,
I think 30 is considered a lot. It seemed like a lot for gameplay purposes.
Once you get to the later worlds, you can run out your bullets really fast, but certainly in this world, 30 is a lot.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Okay.
So, like I said, I haven't gotten very far yet. Is there much in the way of big boss fights, or is it all going to be adventure and exploration and finding?
It's all pretty much like this. I wanted to do some big boss fights just because it would be really cool to, fight an old one or something. But I also wanted to make sure that players could play stealthy, play non-lethal, and not have to deal with, like, how do you fight a boss when you're trying to observe not killing anyone? It's kind of like the controversy over Deus Ex Human Revolution, where they put in the boss fights, and then people who wanted to be stealthy, had to do these big combat sequences.
Yeah,
It just didn't make a lot of sense to me to have, a big boss fight in a game that was about trying to let the player play their own way. So yeah, I don't have boss fights in this game.
Well,
Go ahead.
Well, the main problem I had with the boss fight issue, I didn't mind the boss fights, but I would have liked workarounds in Deus Ex.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first Deus Ex kind of treated it well, where like they had boss fights, but they were just kind of typical characters, and you could just ignore them, and the game would, let you do that and go on your way without killing someone. So if I had done something like that, if I had put boss fights in Eldritch, I probably would have done it like that. But then, if it's not like a really big monster with some cool, crazy way to fight it, like the spectacle is lower, and then I couldn't really justify putting in a boss fight at all, if that makes sense.
Well, okay, I know now. But what I meant by a workaround is like you find a big boss fight and it's a spectacle, but I would like to be able to sneak on by it and maybe drop a chandelier on it.
Yeah.
Or something crazy.
Yeah, that would be a totally valid way to design that. It just wasn't something that I was either interested in or had time to do in this game.
Oh yes, okay, now just speaking on personal preference, you've been reading a lot of the Cthulhu books right now. Who is currently your favorite old one?
My favorite, I I like Nyarlathotep, or however you say it.
The names are always tough. If we had
Yeah,
one,
I don't think he really qualifies as an old one. I forget exactly the definition of old one, but yeah, he
Isn't
seems,
he actually one of the ones in Eldritch?
yes, yes.
Okay, I thought so.
He's in the second world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like the name Yog-Sothoth, but I haven't got to that story yet, so I'm looking forward to reading that.
speaking of which, have you ever played the game Yogg?
I haven't yet. I was watching, who was I? Exotics, I think, was streaming it the other day, and that looked really cool. Like, yeah, I knew a little bit about it, but I hadn't watched anyone play it yet. Yeah, I have to check that out now.
That whole, I just want to tell a small story now. That whole experience really tripped me out because we interviewed the guys from the Yogg at one point, and it's about like a monster who comes and destroys an entire village, and there's nothing the village can do or a natural event. So it really tripped me out that they did not know that Yog-Sothoth was an old one from a Lovecraft story.
Huh.
I just thought that was the most unbelievable thing. I'm like, you made an Cthulhu, like a... Never mind. I can't
I guess,
vocalize
yeah,
it
maybe
right
they
now.
just kind of like came to the same idea and a similar name by chance. That's funny.
Related to the graveyard that you were just in a minute ago, I'm not sure if I would eat baked meat that I found in a graveyard. Oh,
Probably
there's
good call.
the thing. I forgot its name.
Hoggoth.
Yeah.
It's stuck in a
Anyway.
wall for me.
Yeah,
Um,
he's kind of hanging out halfway through the wall.
so is the game done once you finish the 3 books?
No, there's another world after that.
Okay. How many worlds like that are there?
There's just the one more world after that.
Okay. How incredibly more tough, that was a terrible way to phrase that, is that second world?
The feedback that I've got so far is that the second world is the hardest. Of the 3 that you can get to from the hub, the second world is the hardest, and then the third world, there's a lot of tough enemies in it, but it's not quite as hard. And then the last level after you collect the 3 souls and you head out to the library, that level it's very maze-like. Like, I don't know if anyone streamed it. I think maybe Poe streamed it, but not too many people have seen it yet, so I don't want to give too much away. But it's very maze-like, and it's got a lot of tough enemies in it. So yeah, it can be really tough, especially if you're trying to find all the secrets.
Okay. I just want to say to the chat that we're getting close to the end of our questions as the interviewee or whatever. So if you have your own questions, you can start posting them in chat, and we'll start asking them.
No.
I think some of them have already been answered by Pirate Hearts. But anyway, so we'll continue our questions, and if we see some in chat, we'll ask those as well.
Not quite done with my questions yet. I actually have one more that I have written down here.
Well, I was just saying we were getting towards the end of our lists.
So I'm just wondering, I haven't really been paying attention to the story because I've been conducting an interview or the text. So how much Cthulhu mythos is actually worked into this? Like, have you actually worked in the lore of some of the books that you've read, or has it mainly just been a story of your own telling, or have you used the characters from previous books?
Yeah, it's a pretty superficial adaptation. Like, I use the names and some of the themes. Like, this world is very loosely based on Shadow over Innsmouth, and the second world is very loosely based on the Nameless City. But it's not trying to tell the stories of, like, it's not trying to retell those stories or involve those characters or anything. It's definitely very much like there's this character that you're playing as in this game, and I wanted to tell that story. But honestly, the story isn't a very big part. Mostly, I just wanted to make a game that was fun and had cool weapons and cool monsters, and everything else just kind of is there to support that.
If you're doing free DLC, by the way, what I would absolutely love to see is a Mountains of Madness.
That's actually exactly what I've been thinking about doing.
Oh, that is awesome.
I'm thinking about trying to do something. I don't know, like, this might never happen, so I'm not making any promises, but I would like to do is, like, some sort of infinite or maybe, like, 99 level dungeon based on Mountains of Madness.
That would be really cool. I would even be okay with, like, paid DLC for that, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I would definitely get that. Especially, you could really change things up with a Mountain of Madness setting.
Yeah, for sure.
Be a bit more... Yeah, anyways, I don't know what I was going to say with that. Anyways,
So Poe asked, is the graveyard significant? I'm assuming Poe means like towards Easter egg secrets, whatever. Or it might just be, is it influenced by any Lovecraftian thing that you were thinking about when you made the graveyard?
Yeah,
oh god.
The graveyard is one of a few special rooms that only shows up once in a while. There's no significance of it, like, toward the secrets of the end game or anything, but it does always have some special piece of gear at the back of it. So if you see it and you want to brave, jumping in there with the Shoggoth, you can sometimes get something cool there.
Oh, is he always in the graveyard?
Yeah.
Oh god, there's
There-
like...
Oh, I don't even know how
There is always one in the graveyard. They can be other places too, but there's always
okay.
one in there.
I was thinking I don't even know how I encountered the one I got into then, but that makes sense now that you said that they can spawn outside also. Because I haven't even seen the graveyard until just now on Yessik's stream. But yeah. Poe wants to know, what do you do with the holy symbol?
You can't do anything with the holy symbol.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Not as good as a wink to a man who knows. Say no more, say no more.
It is part of the secrets to one of the other Indians. But that's all I'm going to say about it.
Do you have like a large number of endings for the game?
There's 3 Indians.
Okay. Are any of them considered bad or good, or are they just kind of all like, whatever?
I call them the bad, good, and true Indians. They're like, the bad Indian isn't really bad, but I just needed something to call them. But there's very much like a sequence of, if you don't get any of the secrets, you get the bad Indian. If you get some of them, you get the good Indian. If you do everything right, you get the true Indian.
Wow, Yessik is finding a lot of fountains in his playthrough. Sorry to sort of get off topic there because we were talking about the endings, but I was just surprised because I only ever found like 1 fountain per world.
Yeah, the fountains, they're randomly generated, and sometimes you get a lot of them, sometimes you don't. Generally, the first world, you should be able to exit with at least 5 health, but yeah, sometimes you get like a really bad seed, and there's just not enough there.
Uh-huh. Okay, well, I'll ask my last question. So were there any large features that you either never got to implement or had to cut halfway through development? I know you've talked to me about co-op, but you can mention that and everything.
Yeah. So I, very early, in the earliest days of Eldritch, before there was even the Lovecraft theme, when I was just doing some experiments with the voxel world, I was trying to make a co-op game. Because I was playing Spelunky at the time, and I liked that Spelunky had co-op, and I thought, doing a kind of Bioshocky game with co-op in the random world, that could be really cool. But I quickly found that it was going to at least triple the amount of time that everything took to program, so it just wasn't feasible for this game, which is sad because I still think it'd be really fun. Maybe if I do an Eldritch 2, I'll try to make that co-op.
Uh-huh. I know in my initial email with you, I said that something like it might sort of ruin the atmosphere, but I'd been thinking about it recently also, and I sort of thought that it would be a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, I think some of the creepiness, might be lost if you had other people there playing with you, but I don't know, it'd be fun to try.
Yeah.
I just exited the world instead of picking up the Soul of Dragon.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, wait, what is he doing?
Yeah.
I also saw how you trapped the thing. I always forget its name.
The Shoggoth?
Yeah, I'm starting to understand why this game is horrifying to some people. If I did not have these blocks to put in those things away, I would have been dead.
I actually haven't seen those blocks before.
Yeah, it's one of the powers that you can get. There's 6 different powers.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
This was one
the 2 or 3 of the powers.
Can I
Yeah.
go to the second world without the Soul of Dragon? No.
No, I'll have to go back. I almost cut the block power, actually, because I didn't feel like it was that useful.
Are you
but
kidding
then
me?
It's turned out to be the one that almost everyone loves the most, so I'm glad I didn't cut it.
So what? Is it okay to say all of the powers, or?
Oh yeah, there's
Okay.
there's block, there's lift, which lets you. It's kind of like an infinite number of jumps. You can keep jumping when you're in the air. There's teleport, which works like the translocator from Unreal Tournament. You throw it out and then you warp to wherever it landed.
Uh-huh.
There's...
I could see that being incredibly useful.
It's my favorite power. It was really good. There's Cloak, which makes you invisible for about 10 seconds, but enemies can still hear your footsteps. There is Hypnotize, which will turn enemies to your side. And I think you can even hypnotize Shoggoths, although I can't remember now if I disabled that. But some of the enemies, they'll only be hypnotized for a few seconds. But while they're hypnotized, they'll fight other enemies and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Well, you know, again, lore-wise, that actually kind of makes sense. If you were to pick up the Necronomicon and read through it a bit,
Yeah.
you can kind of gain their powers.
I've missed one power. Oh, Knock is the last power, which it unlocks locked doors and also lets you like throw a sound onto walls to distract enemies. So if you're trying to play stealthy, it's pretty useful.
Oh, that is pretty cool. What would you think would be more effective if you were playing a stealth playthrough? You already got your sneak boots and everything, but do you think that the lock one or the stealth or the cloak would be more useful?
Cloak is really useful in the last couple of worlds, just because there's so many enemies and they're really tough. Yeah, I think my preference is actually to do stealth boots and teleport, and then I don't even use the gun most of the time. I'll just run around, like, sneak up behind guys, teleport behind them or whatever, stab them a few times. That's my favorite way to play.
Do you actually get sneak damage when you sneak attack?
All damage that you do, whether it's from a gun, from the knife, from throwing a rock, whatever it is, will deal more damage if the enemy doesn't know that you're there yet. Once they've seen you and start coming after you, then you lose that bonus.
Okay. Spooter wants to know what kind of loser buys things. And I kind of want to second that question towards Yessik.
Yeah. The shopkeepers in this world, they're a little easy. I'm buffing them up a little bit in the beta, but in the next couple of worlds, you'll fight shopkeepers who have ranged attacks.
Oh yeah, I definitely did notice that the shopkeeper in the second world did seem tougher.
Yeah. So yeah, those guys, they'll kick my ass if I try to steal from them.
But can you get sneak damage off on them if you just hide in a corner and shoot them over and over again?
You only get sneak damage on the first attack, which isn't enough to kill them.
Oh god. Okay, sorry, just took full damage.
Oh yeah, it's not a legitimate question. It kind of is, I guess. Poe wanted to know if you were gonna nerf the knife.
I'm not planning to nerf it yet. Like, a lot of people have mentioned that it's really strong, but I like that about it.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah, it could happen, but I'm not planning to.
Poe needs to quit their complaining. Oh man, Yessik, you are so close to dying.
Yeah, I'm alright.
Alright, well, unless the chat has any more questions, I think,
Another question or idea is you could always nerf the direct damage of the knife, but up its sneak damage.
Yeah.
Make it a very roguey weapon.
Yeah.
But even in a direct combat, if you actually have a knife, like in real life, you can still do a lot of damage with that.
Yes, but it's not against Lovecraftian monsters.
But
yeah.
What about the mage guy? Like, come on.
I want the knife to be better than just punching things, but it's already faster, so it doesn't need to be faster and deal more damage too. So, but yeah, I'll figure all that stuff out hopefully in the next few weeks when, you know, hundreds of people are playing the beta, which that's going to be great and also a little bit scary.
So is stealth your favorite way to play through the game?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, I'm a huge fan of the Thief games, and I played Dishonored stealthy the first time that I played it.
Did you get it with 0 kills?
No, I haven't done that yet.
It's so difficult. I think when I first started trying to do it, that there was a bug where like some characters would just die for no reason.
Well,
Because I made sure that I put everybody like on like a high enough table that if they fell, they wouldn't die, but that like no rats would get to them or anything either. And I always ended up with just 1 kill, and I was like, "How does this happen?"
But yeah, I definitely go for the stealth play style in any game that offers it.
Yeah, it's definitely fun to do. I didn't really think about a stealth playthrough of Eldritch until later, more recently in my time playing it, but I'll definitely have to try doing that.
Yeah, I did. I actually did like a non-lethal vegan playthrough one time, and I've tuned the game a lot since then. I think it would be harder than when I tried it, but it was like the most challenging, intense experience I'd had playing Eldritch. And it's really cool that like I can still challenge myself that way.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna try that challenge. I'll probably end up recording it too,
Nice.
just because people will probably want to see my rage and losing. Anyway, any more questions? I don't think there were, but a lot of people do want you to kill that shopkeeper.
Did you play through a six-sided sanctuary in stealth playthrough? I'm not sure who that question's directed to. Personally, yeah, I played through all of it.
What would the stealth playthrough in Six-Sided Sanctuary even look like?
All the materials are black and you can't tell which are which.
Wait, what is Six-Sided Sanctuary?
What?
It's post-puzzle game. It's really good.
Yeah, a German website reviewed it saying it was vindictively hard.
Huh. I somehow haven't heard of that. Although apparently Zero Doxy likes it, because when you Google search Six-Sided Sanctuary, her picture is like the 40th thing to come up. Oh, there's Jay Riaz Anyway, so the end of this interview kind of got way off track. Anyway.
Let's shut it down then.
All right, I will. So this has been our interview with David Pittman. And like I said, he made Eldritch, and he also worked on BioShock 2 and the Bureau XCOM Declassified. Thank you for coming out, David. Well,
Yeah.
I say out as if you're like right next to me, but thank you for joining our Skype call.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for your questions. I'll stick on the call, I guess, for a bit if people want to ask questions in the chat, or else if you got to go, I can get off Skype.
I'm fine with sticking around for a little while.
Well, I'm still playing, so I'm good.
Cool. Yeah, I'll keep watching the stream and I'll answer questions if anyone has any.
Okay.